Vinicius Jr, eh? David, I mean, we saw what happened against Real Madrid, and I know you've discussed it with Andy on OTC Monday, but every time I look at this video, it looks worse and worse and worse. So it did deserve an apology, and Vini has done the right thing and apologised. Is that the end of it?
Oh, that's definitely not the end of it. And this isn't the start of it. This isn't the end of it. This is an ongoing thing. And I think Real Madrid are tearing the hair out with this kid. They really, really are. And
not a kid anymore.
He's exactly that's the thing. He isn't, and he shouldn't be doing things like this now. I think there's a lot more expected of him. But look, credit where it's due. He did apologise. He's come out, public apology. A lot was made of Xabi Alonso's name not being there, but apparently he's apologised to him behind the scenes. They've sorted it behind the scenes. Apparently a line is drawn under it, but we know that is not the case because there's also the looming aspect of his contract renewal, which I feel we've been talking about for a couple of years now. It currently expires in 2027. We've got a little bit of time there before he could walk away for free, which I don't think he will. But it's an issue because it just keeps sitting there. And you can clearly see there's a bit of cloak and dagger stuff in the media as well. When Real Madrid, through Florentino Perez, are feeding things out, Vini's people are feeding things out, and there's a little bit of a clash there on the way it's going. So, there's a few threats being made. Oh, Vini might walk, he might leave, look for a move elsewhere. Then you've got the Florentino side feeding out that, look, we don't really need him. We've got Bellingham. We're fine. And Rodrigo, if needed as well, we're fine. So this is all playing out as well. And all the while, this new aspect of things has occurred with Xabi Alonso arriving at the club. And their apparent lack of a relationship between the two. Vini not feeling like he is an undisputed starter. If you look, he's been hauled off in quite a few games. He hasn't played 90 minutes very often, so much less than he did under Ancelotti, for example. And there's a feeling of just, there's something not quite right and collected there between the pair. And he is a superstar. And the way that Real Madrid manage superstars is they keep everybody on board, everybody's ego is at bay, and that dressing room, it's kind of massaged in a way. Zidane did it brilliantly. Ancelotti did it brilliantly as well. And also, the key thing to remember, you had senior statesmen, you had your Modric and Kroos, who also managed that dressing room. Even go back to Sergio Ramos as well, who's an unbelievable manager in the dressing room with expectations and egos and young players. That figure isn't really there in the dressing room now. So you look at it and go, when Vini has these outbursts, when he has these issues, which player is going to go to him and say something? Outside of maybe Dani Carvajal, I don't really see that. So there's a lot of things still bubbling there with Vini. And
what about Xabi Alonso? He's a former player and he's also the coach.
Yeah.
Does he not have the influence of the likes of Modric and Sergio Ramos, the influence that they once had? Does he not have that?
Real Madrid's a funny club. Xabi Alonso is a winner at every single level with Spain, with Real Madrid, with every club that he has been at. He has won. But you have to win and earn the respect and trust in that dressing room. And I still don't think he's fully got it yet. You've got to remember, it hasn't started out perfectly for Xabi Alonso at Real Madrid as well. Okay, we had that good win at Barcelona, and I think that's a key juncture. I think that could turn the screw a little for them and for them moving forward and what he wants to put across. But it's not quite there. He's very, very involved as well. And this is another thing that's been fed out to the press from whatever side it may be, that there is a feeling in the Real Madrid dressing room that Xabi Alonso is extremely hands-on. He's another player on the training field. He gets involved. He's got the Copa Mundials on and he's skinning passes about the pitch and he's involved with everybody there like that. I think Ancelotti was far removed. Even Zidane as well is a bit more further removed than that. And I think the players haven't become accustomed to that. So that's a different thing for them to feel with. So there's a few players as well as Vini who are kind of still figuring things out with Real Madrid at the moment and where they're going.
Nicky, look, it's not the first time a player's had a strop on the field, being called off, being substituted. But this one felt as if it was on a different level. I know we're talking about superstars and everything like that. And now we are hearing, albeit nothing confirmed, that Real Madrid could entertain the idea of letting Vini go. Are we close to that yet? Or is this just, speculation? Is this, again, his people versus Real Madrid's people feeding the press what is not necessarily the correct truth, the reality?
I think we're at the start of a power struggle, aren't we? It's a classic. It's a classic Madrid story. And of course, what you saying about that, I don't know, amplification of it, Dotun, it feels like that's just who Real Madrid are. Everything is turned to 11 all the time because that's how they exist, and how they exist very successfully, by the way. It's the reason they are the one club who can sit top of the Deloitte Money League even when the Premier League is running off with all the cash. They can still do it because they are so big and so noisy, and everything is always so everything all the time. And so, of course, when you have an attack with all these absurdly talented footballers, there was going to be some element sooner or later, and in this case sooner, of someone feeling like they weren't getting their fair share. They weren't getting their part of the pie. And it seems pretty clear that that in the early stage of Alonso's tenure, the big winner is Kylian Mbappé, who is very much at his best again and getting to be the guy there in the middle of the attack. And Vini, I hesitate to say is the loser because he's still starting. It's just that he's coming off a bit more than he wants to. He's getting substituted more than he wants to. It's not like he's suddenly not part of the puzzle. But when you're dealing with players who, in this case, thinks he was cheated out of a Ballon d'Or and thinks he is absolutely the best player on the planet, that's the level of which things operate. Again, the dial is at 11. The dial is not at a normal club's level. It's there. Do I think he could be sold? I think with the contract situation, it's certainly feasible, but I think it comes down to how this power struggle plays out. If Alonso keeps winning, then yes, because in the end, if you keep winning, you're probably I say probably because in Madrid, I think that's maybe the one place where even winning isn't always going to do it for you. But probably, yes, you get that authority from winning.
I wonder if the better question, and I'll ask both of you this, I'd like both your thoughts. I wonder if the better question isn't whether or not Real Madrid would be better off letting go of Vini Jr. When you say, Nicky, that Kylian Mbappé was the big winner, if you like, in terms of star power, arguably, for me, since Xabi Alonso has come in, it's Arda Güler who has been the one that's been the one that's come up against or the one that succeeded the most since then. And then we haven't mentioned the other players all around Kylian Mbappé and Vinicius Jr, the likes of Bellingham and everything. Would Real Madrid be better off just letting him go and concentrating on the other players who were on message?
It's a balancing act. Because Vini Jr. on his day is one of the best players in the world. Some people will argue he's the best in his position in the world.
Never won the Ballon d'Or.
Exactly. And so the people keep reminding him as well. And this is the funny thing. Other players keep reminding him. So this is the new thing to wind Vini up on the field as well. So I think it was during Classico, Pedri goes to Vini Jr. and he goes, I see they're letting Mbappé take penalties now. So it's little things like that. And that will wind up Vini during the game and just poke him and prod him a little bit. So it's an interesting one. But no, to answer your question, it's a balancing act. If you remove him, you take a lot away from the team in terms of how your attack is funneled and in the way it plays. And obviously, Xabi Alonso is trying to work with something as well. So what happens if he finally gets it right, and then they go, oh, by the way, we're selling Vini? He's going to be like, well, why did I try? I've had this impossible task and I've solved it. But then there's also Real Madrid look at it from a PR point. Do we need this drama every single time with him? With everything that goes on, there's just something all the time, every single game. And a lot of it, in terms of his irritation and his anger, is very justified. We obviously know what's gone on in Spain with Vini. Now, there's other instances, though, where it's kind of like, yeah, you're being a bit of an idiot right now. And he has been told that, and there's awareness over that. And I think Real Madrid could do without that. And they look at it and, why don't we just get another really good winger who doesn't bring this drama to the team and who's another golden boy and another somebody that we can take home to meet the mom like Jude Bellingham. And that's the thing that they're balancing right now and dealing with, and that's why this contract is kind of being prolonged out.
See, but I feel like at a normal club, quote unquote normal club, that would absolutely be the dialogue. You think, what's the drama worth? But I'm again in my head, that's who Madrid are. They are the collection of Galacticos, and sometimes it is too much. But that's the almost the what makes them who they are, is that they live on that threshold. They live on that edge of, and I think that the Jose Mourinho chapter was maybe a chapter in which they felt like they went over it. They couldn't stay on the threshold. And I was thinking about Mourinho actually, because if you go through Mourinho's different tenures, quite often he would make a villain within his own squad as someone to isolate a bit and almost galvanize the rest of the team against.
He did it very high profile with Karim Benzema. And obviously they managed to get back on the side. But some of the things Mourinho put out and said about Benzema were scandalous, I thought. And I thought it was a little bit over the top. So yeah, you're absolutely right. He does do that. He's done it at Man United with Pogba as well.
Did it with Zaniolo at Roma, did it with Balotelli at Inter when they were on the way to winning the Champions League. And I just don't imagine Alonso following that same path, is what I was thinking with the rest of that thought, which is why I can't. If Alonso wins the power struggle, if Alonso is going to continue being the manager there, and I think in Madrid, like, your future is never promised. If things go wrong, you can get out of favor real quick. He's doing well right now, but I think if he stays the manager there, then it becomes more unlikely that an unsettled player would stay, because I don't think that's his way. I don't think he wants that tension. But I think the club, as a club, does not inherently reject that tension. The club will tolerate whatever as long as the show is thriving. And that's what makes them such a fascinating club. And such a fascinating spectacle to watch.
What Vini's done with his public outbursts, though, is distract away from the fact that Real Madrid are actually top of the league.
They should be celebrating. They just won Clásico, the biggest result of the Xabi Alonso tenure so far. But this is what I'm saying about the drama. He's taken away from a very, very good result. And that is what they've got to contend with. And they're going to look at it and go, every time we've had a success, is he going to have done something to reduce that and reduce our jubilation over that? And that's what they've got to, really, really weigh up.
And of course, it's not just that you distract away from, the kudos of being top of the league, but it's got to affect the other players, hasn't it? It's got to be.
I think that's a critical part of it, because I've still, without wanting to hammer the same drum, I'm agreeing with you both, but I'm also thinking, but we're talking about them, which I think is, again, that's kind of who I think Madrid are. Yeah, but we're the story. We're the ones you want to know about, and we won. And I tend to think, as long as those two things are true, that the show can go on. But I agree that the point where maybe things become more untenable is if the internal harmony of that locker room becomes too much, becomes distraction, becomes damaging. I'm not convinced we're there yet, because again, they won the biggest league game of the season so far at the weekend. So for now, at least, the picture on the pitch is rosy.
Okay. I think Nicky's trying to say he's still in the WhatsApp group.
Yeah.
So when the side WhatsApp group is made without Vini, that's when to worry.
Thank you for that inside information. Just a final point, though. If he were to go between now and 2027... Yeah, where? I know we're not there yet, and that's a good point.
But I think that it's also the other overarching part of the Madrid story for me is it was ever thus. It was ever thus that Madrid had too many players to fit into the team, and some of them end up getting squeezed out, and many of them take that chip they have on their shoulder and go somewhere else, and at least for a little while, absolutely smash it. And for me, because of the league I cover, the classic example is forever Wesley Sneijder, who wasn't good enough for Madrid and then went and had, I thought it should have been a Ballon d'Or winning season as the key figure in a Champions League win for Inter, and then going to the final of the World Cup with...
he was brilliant in Turkey, wasn't he? As I recall, Wesley Sneijder did very well there as well.
Yeah.
But where to? Because what are the options after Real Madrid? You're laughing.
This is the most difficult question of them all.
Course.
Myself and Andy Brassel have mulled this one several times on several shows, and the options are just more and more reduced. I don't see Bayern. They've got Harry Kane. After Harry Kane, no, I think they'll go for a different type of strike. I think they're more likely to go for Woltmad from Newcastle, try and bring him back home. To spend some if they spent big money. Man City, I don't know what Pep goes, and then they might move in a different direction. Maybe Vini arrives then if they want to go back to that. But again,
they don't want the headache, though, do they? Man City don't want that headache.
The clubs don't want the headache. So then you can go through all the clubs. So you're always going to come back to Saudi. But it's like, is Vini really going to... If this is the kid...
Not if he wants the Ballon d'Or.
Exactly. Yeah. This is the thing that has chewed him up most, is not winning the Ballon d'Or. He is certainly not winning it if he goes to Saudi. So he's the one... I genuinely don't know where he goes.
Does this end up with Vinícius Jr. at Manchester United and just somehow inexplicably no longer able to score a goal?
David said he's not going to win the Ballon d'Or. Let's just leave it at that.